So as you can see, this side of the building is pretty close to being wrapped up. We're just wrapping up the siding still. Now from the inside out, what we have here is zip system sheathing. We have core event furring strips to create a gap, and we have LP Smart Side lap siding. For the trim, we're using Boral True Exterior, which is a polyash material. The idea here, the theme, is that we're using really durable materials that can take a punch. We want this building to really last, and because we're doing it kind of weekend by weekend, it was important that it be able to stand up to the elements while we were building it. Whereas if we use wood trim and wood siding, it could start to soak up water while we're in the middle of the project, and we don't want that. But what we're talking about now is the roof trim. In appearances, it's a fairly simple trim detail. We modeled this after this shaker shed at the Hancock Shaker Village. We reverse engineered how that trim went together, which they hand cut. And actually, in their model, it varied from one side of the building to the other. But we looked at all the different corners of their building, and we kind of came up with our version of it as faithful to the original as we could. And what happens is, if you come around the corner here, you can see this is kind of the magic where it all comes together. This is the view where you really get a sense of how complicated this is. Now I have this little mock-up that we built back in the shop to kind of make sure we knew all of our angles, and it took some fussing, but I think we got there. This is kind of the roadmap to making these cuts, and it's kind of a head scratcher. It's really easy to get confused in the middle of this and have a piece oriented the wrong way with the wrong bevel and the wrong miter, and then you have to factor in the length at the top. So it's a little bit of a fuss to put in, but let me show you how we do it. Okay, so we're gonna start with this piece back here. And as you can see, we already have the eave trim on, and we already had that bottom piece of rake trim. So now we just need to add that secondary piece of crown molding at the top. So this should be fairly straightforward, but let's see how it goes. So this is another piece of Boral True Exterior. It's 5/4 by 6, and we're gonna use this for our top piece of crown. When in doubt, just hold it up and use the building as your guide to make sure you're not screwing it up, because these pieces of trim are not inexpensive, and one wrong cut and you could end up wasting a whole piece. The easiest way to keep track of this, because it does get confusing, is to write down all of your notes from your mock-up right on the mock-up itself. And that includes not just the degrees of miter and bevel, but also instructions like have this side facing out, have this side against the table, that kind of thing, because when you're on the job site, you don't want to have to think about it. Just have a roadmap. It's hard enough even with this. All right, let's see how it fits. That's pretty good. What I might do here is knock a little bit off the bottom of this piece, so that a bevel, so that it sits tighter on that. Just to make sure I get a snug joint between this piece and the one up there, I'm just gonna bevel a little bit with the block plane. This stuff actually planes out beautifully. It's just like wood, although you may have to resharpen your blade after. Looks pretty good to me. We got a nice tight miter here with a little gap right here, but that's fine. We're gonna add some polyurethane adhesive there, so that's gonna foam and fill out. I'm just gonna nail this sparingly, and then I'm gonna go grab some quick clamps, and I'm actually gonna pinch it tight until the glue sets up. So you can see the clamps really pull that thing nice and tight together and eliminate any gaps you might have running up along the rake here. We'll leave those on for, I'd say, at least an hour, sometimes more. What you wanna see is the glue starting to foam out, and then we can come back after it dries and just chisel it off. So you notice I stopped short here, and in this case I didn't have any stock that made it from one end to the other in one piece. But even if I did, I actually kind of like cutting it. It allows me to finesse one end and then the other. And this seam in the middle, if it's glued and then painted, it disappears, it doesn't matter. So next I'm just gonna cut this little section with the miter at top, and then we'll do the other side. Last up, we have to fit this top piece of trim, which is going to be compound miter at the top. And we'll just wait for this glue to set up. It's going a little slow today because it's cold out. Check the fit. Good. Okay, that's it.